Hi there, welcome back to Guru Grit. My name is Monika, and this is a place where I like to discuss my spiritual journey and all the things that I've learned over the years and share it with you, and hopefully, I hope that you get some value from it, if nothing else, that you're at least mildly entertained. It's all I can really hope for. So I made a video introducing an amazing book by Dr. Herbert Puryear, who based it on the channelings or the teachings or the readings of Edgar Cayce. He's a big time, admirer and student of his work, and it's about sex and the spiritual path. And so I said that I would discuss all the things in the book, so I decided to do it in parts because it's not a big book, but it's quite dense in terms of what it actually talks about, and there's a lot to decipher, and I wanted to also put in my own 2 cents. So without further ado, let's get into it. So, sex and the spiritual path from the perspective of the Edgar Cayce teachings. If you're not familiar with who Edgar Cayce was, he's the most recorded psychic of all time. There's an entire library devoted to his readings. I'm not sure of the number. I think it's something like 30,000. He had a secretary, as he would channel, passed out, channeling, type everything. So they're all stored and preserved in quite good condition, I presume, because people are writing books about them. And he would access the Akashic records. So he's known, some of the things that he talked about 100 years ago have now been proven to be true and correct. Even things that he mentioned that happened thousands and thousands of years ago that we now know through archaeology and through modern science are true, etc. So what does he have to say about sex and the spiritual path? So this book is actually quite interesting, and I'm very fond of Dr. Puryear as well, and his writing, and the fact that he chose to even write this book and his work. I think he has 7 books in total, so quite an accomplished person. And I believe he's a professor, he teaches and such. So in any case, the book opens with what actually is isness. I suppose in a sense you could put it that way, like what is God and what are we, and so why is sex important? Why is this energy so important? Well, he explains the Trinity, energies, and our origins. That's the best way to put it. So, I mean, he even makes mention of Atlantis in here, but if you're familiar with Edgar Cayce, you know that he speaks about ancient civilizations quite a bit, and he mentions that what we think of as mythology today that we see in art isn't actually mythology at all. It's like historical record. It is true, and these things really did exist. So, it just gives a bit of background knowledge to creation in general, not just physical human creation. And in that sense, he also explains that the importance of the act is one to propagate the species. But it's not the only thing. It's another way that we can express love to each other, and another way that we can utilize our physical form. So, the teachings of Dolores Cannon as well also express that out of all the places in existence, this is the only place in the universe that has free will. So to give human beings so much power and free will, just to see what they would do with it. So depending on how you use it is the result that you're going to receive, whether you're conscious or unconscious about your decision making. So in terms of procreation, now you see sex has many different I suppose channels that it could be compartmentalized, and not just propagating our species, but to show love or to inflict pain on one another, right? To deprive each other of love and such. They also explain that we used to propagate the species through thought. So long before we became very dense and very, very physical, we would simply think things into beings. Therefore, by this definition, something like the Immaculate Conception makes perfect sense, because they didn't actually have intercourse. They just went into 4D, decided that they would have a person here, and so they came. They arrived, they were formed, they would make manifest. So I suppose, for example, if you wanted a new car, you would just think it and look in your driveway and it would be there. If you wanted a mate, you would just wish it, and then you would look next to you and there would be your perfect mate manifested right beside you. And then as we fell out of, I suppose, I don't even like the word fall, but let's just say, I don't know, descend is not very soft, but okay, we are what we are now. So now we have to put more feeling, thought, and emphasis into the things that we want, and remind ourselves that we are creators. Okay, so this is very important, because the next part of the book, he touches on why that is so important, and it's important because you forget. And now there's value in forgetting. That's my own 2 cents. There's so much value in forgetting about the incarnation process, and there's so much value in finding your way back to living in a way that feels really good to you. And so it's not, you're not born cursed or with original sin or something like that because you're mortal, you're not less than or any such thing. He does give a hierarchy to the species on the planet. So there's man, animal, plant, and mineral. So like rocks, crystals, minerals, spirits, you know, the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom. So out of the four, humanity is the only one that actually has individual consciousness. So we are part of a greater one, as he says in the book. If you were to just love one person, you would still be loving the great one, capital O, all that is, because it's an expression of the great whole. But you do have fragments of energies, let's just say like souls or soulmates, or if you're really extreme, you can believe in twin flames, and say that that feels more like, you know, a more, I don't know, exciting love or beautiful love or something like that, because it comes from the same energy group as you manifested from. So they feel very familiar to you. That's what a soulmate is. But ultimately you could choose to love anyone and that person will become your soulmate. So he just mentions how we love and how we flow love, and the differences in these consciousnesses is very, very important, because he explains that the Creator created us to see what we would do and if we would choose to be its equal. If we would choose to be its equal. And so when we act out of alignment with the Creator, we're not tuned into the Creator, we're not attuned, then we're not on that vibration. So we're not living for the purpose that we were created to live, which is to be creative and to be loving, because our source, our Creator, is just the vibration of love. It's like pure love. And so we are liquid love, where it's and we're mostly water, so that's very helpful. So when we choose to do things out of spite, misery, we choose to be reactive. This is the only thing that, if there was such a thing as sin, there isn't. This would be it. It is to act from what he calls to act from the place of the carnal mind. I just love how music came on. That's really funny. That's happened a few times. I feel that it amplifies the message. So there's no such thing as sin. So to say that Christ's mandate is to forgive isn't a whole message, because in order to forgive, you would need something to condemn. And if there's nothing to condemn, then there's nothing to forgive. So you can't ever do anything so rotten that you break apart from your maker. It's not possible. Like, evil is fictitious. You know, Dr. Joseph Murphy talks about that. He says there's no such thing as evil. If you break down the word devil, it's to be of evil, like de evil, okay? And he says it's literally the silliest thing in the world. It's all imagined. There is no devil, there is no hell, there is just doubt. Doubt is the closest thing in the universe that you will get to the sensation of evil. To doubt that your Creator loves you, to doubt your own self-love, and to close yourself off from all of those things. So the book goes over that a bit, just to say there's really nothing wrong that you do, but what's happened is the misuse of how we perceive sex. This has made us feel like punishing ourselves, and the reason is not sex itself, it's the misuse of creative energy. So yes, of course, it can be the literal physical act that you misuse, but it's also thought, it's emotion, it's your words. You can misuse intention, because all those things are used to create your reality. So it's not just the actual act, it's how you approach the act. And he does make the distinction. He says very, very clearly, you know, it's not even that if you're married now it's safe. You can demand it from your spouse, you can force yourself on them, you can guilt them, coerce them, expect it, make them feel obligated, emotionally manipulate them. You know, there's a show called Call the Midwife, which is really good. I love that show. And in it, there's a woman who has so many children, and she's trying so hard not to get pregnant again, and then she does. So when the midwife visits her, she's like, well, what happened? Like, I thought you weren't going to be doing it for a while because you're like overwhelmed and you're so poor and you're overworked. And she says, I know, but if you don't, then you pay for it in other ways. Like, you're emotionally pressed upon, or someone strays from you if you don't satisfy them. So we do this to each other as human beings. I'm not saying it's like men versus women, like all energy is capable of defending itself and asserting some kind of violence, being emotional violence or spiritual violence. So you have to be mindful when you're doing that, when you're playing games. You know, some of my favorite books are by Robert Greene. I'm obsessed. I just love them. They're like the 2.0 to The Art of War by Sun Tzu. But those things, it's true, those things don't work on emotionally intelligent people. They don't work on the self-aware, because you're like, I'm happy and I've come forth to radiate joy. So if you're asking me for something I'm not ready to give you, like I want to fall in love with you and I'd be happy to make love to you and it's gonna be amazing. But what's with the phone tag and what's with the, coded messaging and all? It's exhausting. No one has time for that. But see, when we do that to one another, we're misusing our creative power. So this is what he calls the closest thing to sin is to default to the carnal mind. So he references it as the carnal mind, to lust, to do things mindlessly. And it doesn't just have to be, intimacy. It could be eating mindlessly. You're not connecting with your food. You're not paying attention when you drink tea. You're just stuffing, my favorite orifice, just stuffing your pie hole, and you're just rushing. You're eating standing in the elevator, grabbing this, grabbing that. You're not connecting with food. You're not connecting with its journey, where it came from, giving it your presence and your attention and love. And this is quite important. I remember in the Ringing Cedars of Russia book, Anastasia said, it's such an easy cure for anything. She said, if you take seeds and you want to plant, let's say tomatoes, and you swish them around in your mouth with your saliva, and then deposit them in your hand and speak unto them the healing that you want done to you, and then plant them and eat that food, it's now genetically predisposed to your form. So it will literally make you healthy. It will give you what you want, for example. So this is how connected we can be to our food and to our environment. And there's been so much studies, done on water and how our bodies respond to water and sound. So I'm like a sound person. So to me, that's really important. You can tell by someone's voice, no matter how nice they look or how media trained they are, how strategic and how appealing and charming, people who, master something that they're naturally good at, be it food or like my sister's very visual, she can draw, she can pick up micro expressions in people. You know right away if someone's telling you the truth, if something's good for you or not good for you, be it not even like drinking or smoking. You can just kind of tell, hey, like oats are great, everyone loves oats, but they don't feel good to me, I don't eat them, so there's always something. So this is what it means to transcend the carnal mind. Of course you need it. You live in the physical. I'm happy I have opposable thumbs. I can pick stuff up and like enjoy my time on earth. Putting on 12 coats of mascara brings me so much joy. I'm glad I get to do it. But do it mindfully. Eat mindfully. Speak mindfully. Listen. Give people your presence. This is to use your mind for good, to elevate yourself. And then when you become elevated, now you can create with anyone, anything, not just children or lovemaking, but you can be creative forces together. You can co-create, stories and book ideas and jewelry or food or just a moment, just to be present in that moment. Or sometimes, maybe you're just sitting in a park and some little animal walks by and you and your friend were just talking about that, and that only happened so that you could perceive it with them and you created that amazing experience. Those are things money can't buy. Like money can't buy this beautiful stuff that you experience on the daily if you're aware. So basically, in summation, to transcend the carnal mind, you do things mindfully. Okay? Shower mindfully. When you wake up in the morning, take a few seconds before your consciousness comes crashing in and pretty much assaulting you, and just think nothing or intend to have a good day. Intention is very important. If you're entering into a new partnership, you intend it intently. Like Abraham in their first book says, do everything with intention, especially relationships. Even if you're just going for lunch with an old friend, as soon as you sit down, tell them what you intend to gain from that. Say, I'm so happy to catch up with you. I want you to tell me everything you've been up to and I can't wait to hear it. Or, I'm sorry I didn't see you at Christmas. We had a misunderstanding. It's my intention to clear that up. You have to intend strongly. To get anywhere, you have to put in some of that fuel, that emotional fuel. And, energy is the currency of the cosmos, so it counts. It's enough just to have that intention. And when you misuse that intention to just satisfy your physical senses, your loneliness, some kind of void, or to feel that you're in competition with other people who are partying or settling down, but you want to be, so you're like, okay, this person came along, I guess you'll do. I just need someone beside me who's breathing and alive. I check their pulse once in a while. It's like, that's not very, you're not intending the best. you're creating by default, okay? Default creations are just never that satisfying, they're never that exciting. So to leap from that state of the carnal mind is to do things intentionally and start small, you know, every day. It could just be when you're drinking your coffee, watching the sunrise, going to bed, taking 5 minutes just to enjoy your breathing, to feel the pillow under your head and just, you know, like Neville Goddard says, to enter the scene or set the scene, and then you watch the bridge of incidents unfold. So this is to use your creative power for good. And when you do that, everything in your life unfolds beautifully. In the book, he even says it will deepen all of your relationships. It will make food taste better. Everything just becomes much more heightened when you shift that energy. So you don't have to go to the store and start buying name brand things that you weren't before. Everything will taste better to you. And when you're in a happy feeling state, you could eat junk and it would still give your body what it needs, because you are now the dominant energy. Your energy field is so much more powerful than that of like a potato chip or a French fry or a fried pickle or a fried Mars bar, okay? So you can make it nourish you. As Reverend Ike says, I've never been depressed and I don't know what it means to be sad. I tell my thoughts what to think and I tell my feelings what to feel. So apparently this is actually very, very possible according to the book, and from my own experience, I'm not in a resistant way, but I just feel I have no time to be upset. Like I'm such a sensitive person. I'm pretty like melancholy, and I had a friend one time tell me, "You remind me of my ex-husband. He was just so melancholy. Monika, it's a waste of time. We need to beat that out of you. That has got to go. It is annoying as you know what." Like she's like, especially when you get married, it's so annoying to be around, you know. And it just made me laugh. And she was right, because I get annoyed with myself when I sulk. I'm very moody. So I thought, yeah, that's not cool. And when you become self-aware, you don't do anything mindlessly. Now you do it with intent. So the next time I'm sulky, I'm choosing to be that way. It's my choice. So I have to go burn off some energy, exercise, I started learning how to skateboard, you know, just get out there and challenge myself. And then I feel so much better. And then you level up. And each time you level up, you just do a little better each time. So that's how you do it. And most importantly, you know, I love Neville. Neville Goddard even said, when you enter the state of what you want, it's a feeling state. You enter the feeling first, because the feeling is the secret. He has a whole book called The Feeling is the Secret. You envision that scene, let's say 10 to 30 seconds. Let's say you wanted a specific person to call you, but they don't know who you are. Doesn't matter. Discipline your thoughts. Say you script 3-4 sentences that you're answering the phone going, "Who is this?" And they're like, "Oh, it's so-and-so. I heard about your work. You're a great journalist. I was wanting to hire you." Who cares, right? Whatever it is. And you're like, great, they came to me. So now you play that scene, that 10 seconds over and over and over again until you start to breathe and kind of pant and get really, really excited. And when you're at the height of your excitement, whether you're sitting in a chair or lying in bed, you just release it into the universe and you leave it alone. And Neville Goddard says, it's not a physical thing, it's a psychosexual act. It's a psychic act of creation. And once it's put out into the universe, it's completely out of your hands and it must come. So it must come to pass. How you react to it is entirely up to you, but it has to happen once you've had that singular experience. Okay, you want to do it every night for 30 days, be my guest. But according to this book as well, all you need is your mind and inject it with some feeling. And because breath is the thing that tethers us to our earthly life, if you infuse breathing with feeling and thinking, well, now you've got the trifecta. You have the full key to unlock creation and everything you want to create. Wow, so exciting. It's so simple and it's so funny, and I feel that it's always been there. In fact, it has always been there. And it's one of the reasons why, you know, it's good to move away from watching things that make you moody or really upset or scared. Like horror films are a really great example because they kind of like capture your mind. They are very engaging. They're very interesting. And then they've got you breathing and startled and shaking and your heart pounding. So they just grip you and they suck you in. And it happens very, very quickly. So it's much easier to feel fearful and all these things than it is to feel loving, because those things are not true to your nature. They're not true to your form. So they have to work 10 times harder to keep and capture your attention, to capture and keep it and hold it. But to feel loving is the same thing. You just start where you are, work up to it gradually, and then it just becomes first nature. And you always default to being in a good mood. You know, maybe something that happened this week, if it happened to me 10 years ago, I would just be distraught for like a month. And now I'm upset for no more than an hour. I just think, okay, what am I gonna have for lunch? Like I can't, because it's like going to the gym. It's easy for you now. You just pick it up, and okay. You just become really good. You become like a spiritual surfer. You just master those waves and you keep going. So I hope you found this interesting and insightful. Next we get into the body and the actual act itself. Thank you so much for being here. I don't want to keep you waiting because I found this to be so topical with everything we talk about. And yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know if you liked it, and stay tuned for the rest of the book. I wish you a wonderful rest of the day, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.